Be honest, when you think about heaven, what do you picture? For most of us, in the West, the image is culturally standardized. It looks like a Far Side cartoon. We picture a fluffy, white cloud. We picture ourselves wearing a white robe. Maybe we have a pair of wings. And, inevitably, we are holding a harp. We are told this is paradise. We are told it is a place of eternal rest. But if you are really honest with yourself, does that image actually sound good? Or does it sound, well, incredibly boring? For many people, the popular concept of the Christian afterlife is terrifyingly dull. An eternity of sitting on a cloud. An endless, billions of years-long church service. It sounds static. It sounds disembodied. It sounds like a loss of everything that makes us human. Our passions, our work, our creativity, our connection to the physical world. As the writer Mark Twain famously quipped, choose heaven for the climate and hell for the company. But what if I told you that this cloud-floating version of heaven is not in the Bible? What if I told you that the biblical authors, from Isaiah to Paul to John of Patmos, would have looked at our modern image of dying and going to heaven and found it unrecognizable, perhaps even heretical? What if the actual biblical promise is not about leaving the physical world to float in a spiritual void, but about the physical resurrection of the body and the restoration of the planet Earth itself? What if the afterlife isn't about playing harps, but about architecture, agriculture, governance, and art? Today, we are debunking the biggest myth of the afterlife. We are exploring why the biblical heaven isn't about floating on clouds, but about keeping your feet on the ground. If the Bible doesn't teach that we turn into ghosts and float in the clouds, where did that idea come from? To find the source, we have to leave ancient Jerusalem and travel to ancient Athens. We have to talk about Plato. The Greek philosophical tradition, particularly Platonism and later Gnosticism, was built on a strict dualism, the physical material. This was seen as temporary, flawed, corrupt, and heavy. The body was a prison house for the soul. The spiritual, immaterial. This was eternal, perfect, pure, and light. For a Platonist, salvation meant escape. It meant the soul finally getting free from the heavy meat sack of the body so it could fly up to the realm of pure ideas and spirit. Death was the liberation of the soul from the material world. This view is incredibly influential. It shaped Western culture, but it is not the view of the ancient Hebrews. In the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, a human being is not a soul trapped in a body. A human being is a unity. In Genesis 2, God forms man from the dust of the ground and breathes life into him, and he becomes a living soul, nephesh. You don't have a soul. You are a living, embodied creature. The Hebrew hope was never about escaping the physical world. The physical world was very good. The hope was about living in the physical world, but living there correctly, in the presence of God. So, how did we get the cloud heaven? As Christianity moved out of the Jewish world and into the Greek world, it began to absorb Greek philosophy. Early Christians started to mix the biblical hope with Platonic dualism. They began to imagine the afterlife not as a restoration of the earth, but as an escape from the earth to a spiritual sky realm. By the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, this Platonic Christianity had won. We got paintings of chubby cherubs on clouds and saints staring into the beatific void. The resurrection of the body became a footnote. The immortality of the soul became the main event. So, if it's not about being a ghost, what is the biblical view? The leading New Testament scholar N.T. Wright coined a famous phrase to explain this. He says the Bible teaches life after death. Here is the distinction. 1. Life after death, the intermediate state. When a believer dies, the Bible does suggest they go to be with Christ, Philippians 1:23. This is heaven or paradise. And this is crucial, this is a temporary waiting room. It is not the final destination. It is a disembodied state of rest. 2. Life after death. The ultimate hope of Christianity is not staying in the waiting room. It is resurrection. The word anastasias in the first century did not mean life after death. It meant life after death. It meant a new bodily life after a period of being dead. The prototype for this is Jesus. When Jesus is resurrected in the Gospels, he is not a ghost. In Luke 24, he says, "Touch me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have." He then asks for food. He eats a piece of broiled fish in front of them. This is the shock of Easter. The claim wasn't that Jesus' spirit went to heaven. The claim was that his body walked out of the grave, transformed and glorified, but still physical. The Apostle Paul argues in 1 Corinthians 15 that what happened to Jesus is exactly what will happen to everyone else. Christ the first fruits, then at his coming, those who belong to Christ. The biblical hope is that you will get your body back. A body that doesn't get sick, doesn't age, and doesn't die, but is still a body. You will have vocal cords to sing, taste buds to enjoy food, and legs to walk. The afterlife is physical, but if we have bodies, where do we live? Do we float in space? This leads to the second massive misconception, the location of the afterlife. Most people think the goal is for us to leave Earth and go up to heaven. The Bible actually describes the exact opposite. Heaven comes down to earth. The grand finale of the Bible, Revelation chapters 21 and 22, does not end with souls flying away. It ends with a city descending. John writes, "And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man." The biblical picture is not an evacuation, it is a merger. It describes a new heaven and a new earth. In biblical cosmology, heaven and earth are not distant planets. They are dimensions. Heaven is God's space, earth is our space. The story of the Bible is the story of these two spaces being reunited. This means the afterlife is located here, on a renewed, restored, purified planet Earth. It describes a city, culture, society, interaction. It describes a garden, nature, agriculture, beauty. It describes nations and kings bringing their glory into it, politics, art, distinct cultures. It is a world where the curse of decay and death is removed, but the physical goodness of creation remains. It is earth, but healed. This brings us back to the boredom problem. If the afterlife is a physical city on a renewed earth, what will we be doing? The floating on clouds view implies we will have nothing to do but stare at God and sing. It sounds passive. The new earth view implies activity. 1. We will work. In Genesis, before sin enters the world, Adam and Eve are given a job. To work it and keep it, Genesis 2:15. Work is not a curse. It is human dignity. The curse only made work frustrating. In the new earth, the curse is gone. This implies that human work returns to its original purpose: cultivation, creation, and stewardship. We will likely build, plant, compose, design, explore, and create without the fatigue or futility of the current world. 2. We will rule. The most common promise in the New Testament regarding the afterlife is that believers will reign. 2 Timothy 2:12. If we endure, we will also reign with him. Revelation 22:5. And they will reign forever and ever. Reign over what? If everyone is a king, who are the subjects? The implication is that we will reign over creation. Just as Adam was told to subdue the earth, the redeemed humanity will be God's viceregents, stewarding the new creation, exploring its depths, creating culture, and expanding the glory of the universe. This suggests an eternity of discovery and responsibility, not passive rest. 3. We will eat. The Bible constantly depicts the kingdom of God as a feast, the marriage supper of the Lamb. Jesus says he will drink the fruit of the vine anew in the kingdom. Eating is a communal, physical, sensory act. It implies agriculture, cooking, taste, and fellowship. So, the biblical vision isn't a solo, disembodied stare into the light. It is a bustling, creative, physical society of resurrected people working, ruling, creating, and feasting on a healed planet. So, we have two rival visions of the afterlife. Vision A, the Platonic popular view. You are a soul, your body is a shell. Salvation is escaping this broken world to go to a spiritual realm up there. It is a flight from creation. Vision B, the biblical resurrection view. You are an embodied human. Your body matters. Salvation is the redemption of your body and the restoration of this world. It is the reclaiming of creation. This distinction changes everything about how we live now. The debate, if Vision A is true, and the world is going to burn and we are leaving, then caring for the earth, for culture, for social structures is kind of like polishing brass on the Titanic. Why bother? It's all going to the trash. But if Vision B is true, if God plans to redeem this earth, to keep the trees and the cities and the bodies, then what we do now matters. Building a hospital, painting a picture, planting a garden, fighting for justice, these aren't just busy work. They are, as N.T. Wright says, building for the kingdom. We are practicing for the new earth. So, which vision do you find more compelling? Is the idea of a spiritual heaven a comforting release from the pains of the physical world? Or is the idea of a restored earth a more robust hope that honors the human need to create, to touch, and to live? Would you rather float, or would you rather explore? Let me know your thoughts, respectfully, in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the hidden geography of the afterlife fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that uncovers the real stories behind our beliefs. Thanks for watching.